If you wouldn't mind just giving a quick introduction about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Jeff Willis. I've been an artist for as long as I can remember, even all the way back in school. I spent about 20 or so years in video games, different types. I've done casual games. I've done some computer games. Lately, I've been more freelance, and I'm doing some work on some tabletop games and whatever other kind of freelance or contract work catches my interest. I've done a little bit of teaching for kids in grade school art, and I just love to sit and draw and paint and try to come up with fun and funny things whenever I can on my own.
Nice. Very, very artistic.
Thank you.
Oh, there's a cat.
Oh, where'd he go? Oh, there he is. Yeah, that's Jackson. He's very needy.
So I have some questions about some of the other stuff you've done as well, but obviously seeing as most people, oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Seeing as most people will probably be interested in the video game stuff, I thought I'd just ask to start off with, have you played the Harry Potter games?
It's been a long time, but yes, I have, of course.
That's great. So yeah, you've done the artwork for a bunch of cards, right?
Yes, I did. I don't know exactly, but I'll say roughly 30 designs for the wizard cards for spanning the first two games.
Okay, nice. And how was that process? How did they get you to do them, I suppose?
Well, it was a little bit of a process. There was an approval process, of course. What they did was they had one artist design the frame and come up with the different, three different, I think it was, levels of color for the frame. And we had to work within that little space in the middle. I believe it, yeah, I'm quite sure it was J.K. Rowling who came up with the list of wizards who were going to go in the game. We got the list, and there were at least three of us artists who got to design the cards, and it was just kind of first come, first serve. We would just pick and choose whatever we wanted to do based on the name and description. And so I enjoyed it so much. Every chance I got, I would just try to grab something from the list and just have some fun with it. I'd try to get the stuff before other people did sometimes. The process was I would look at the description, and I tend to research way too much. So if I came up with a character who was of a certain age or a certain period in time, I would create my mood board. I would just print out a bunch of sheets of paper with different photographs of people from the different times, different hairstyles and whatnot. And I would just start cobbling my own little character together from that. From those pencil sketches, I would send them in for approval to creative director, and he'd give me the green light, and I would start painting. Occasionally, there would be another artist involved to help speed up the process and take my drawings and do some painting as well. But basically, it was just an approval process, and probably more research than I needed to do.
Nice. Was it digital art then, I assume? Or
in the end, yes, it was all done in Photoshop, but initially it was pencil and paper.
Okay, nice. Was it, because obviously it was mostly for the first two games, right? Was it all in one go at the beginning for the first game, or did you do some for that and then more for the second one? Or
yeah, the first game, the list was a specific, I think, selection of the cards that we were given to work from, as I recall. Uh, it may have been for time constraints. I don't remember, but when the second game came along, we were given a lot more freedom and we knew the process. So things were running a little more smoothly. So I don't remember exactly how many were in the first game, but in the end, it was 101, I think, altogether.
Okay, interesting. And
Pardon me, I got a nose itch.
let's just go for it. Let me just see.
It's his fault.
Oh no, you're allergic to cats.
A little bit.
I think my dad is, but like it doesn't stop us wanting to have a cat. So
Same here.
Oh yeah, so how much interaction did you have with Harry Potter before the films and I suppose the games came out? Because the books were around for what, like 4 or 5 years before?
I think so, yeah. And when we got the contract at KnowWonder to work on the games, I had heard of it, and that was it.
Okay.
I knew nothing about it. I do remember seeing the advertising blitzes and the store windows with all the books, and they said they were making a movie of it. So yeah, I really had no experience with reading the books before then. But once I started, I would read the books. I would listen to the audiobooks with Jim Dale narrating, and it was really, really good. And I still love the movies. My wife is even a bigger fan than I am. Whenever the movies come on TV, she has to watch them, and we even listen to the books when we're driving. So yeah, we love the Harry Potter franchise.
Yeah. Nice. That's good. It's good to hear. And so, did you work for KnowWonder, or was it like contracted, or?
I did work for KnowWonder. I was there full time for about 5 years. KnowWonder got the contract through EA Games. I don't know what that process is, but EA would subcontract other companies to actually produce the games. So that's how that worked.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I was just looking at other games that you did or potentially did. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I got this from either some kind of CV or LinkedIn or whatever. I've written down here that you worked on Shrek 2 or Rugrats Totally Angelica. Are
well,
either of those true?
With the Shrek 2, I only did a little bit of art for, I think, some of the narratives. I did some illustrations that were intended as kind of interstitials to help carry the story along.
Okay.
So that's as far as that goes. And it really wasn't very much, but it's something to pad the resume.
Yeah. Because I played Shrek 2 recently. Strange game.
Yeah, I haven't played any of those games for ages, so I can't even remember how they play anymore. What was the other game we talked about?
I've written down Rugrats Totally Angelica.
Oh yeah. That was my first foray into KnowWonder. Was they had these contracts with Rugrats. They had done some other things prior to that, some things with Dilbert, and I think some screensavers for Bloom County or something like that. But yeah, I started off working with Rugrats, doing production art for production animation, helping with background design and color, maybe a little bit of UI as needed. And I worked on a number, I think, of Rugrats titles. That became the company's bread and butter for a while, I think. And yeah, as much as I really wasn't a Rugrats fan, I do have to give them credit for giving me some bread and butter too.
Yes. I think we had 2 Rugrats games when I was really young, and I tried playing them again, and they're not as good as I remember, I will say. So I saw you also did some concept art for at least the first Harry Potter game. Were you involved a lot in that side as well?
Yeah, that was an interesting side of that. when we got the contract for the movie, the studio refused to give us any images to pull from because everything was under their non-disclosure. So
Yes,
it was
yeah.
under lock and key, so we couldn't see anything. But the 3D artist needed something to start building from. So part of my assignment was to just make some stuff up based on the creatures or characters that were going to be in the game. So I did a lot of pencil sketches. I'd never done anything like that before, and so there wasn't a lot of Photoshop involved at that time. Mostly it was just pencil sketches so that the modelers could get some things going. So when it came to something like Fluffy, I had no idea what a three-headed dog was going to look like. So I just started putting some stuff together. I think I got lucky with that one, and that I actually picked the right breed of dog so that it looked
Wow,
pretty darn close.
didn't even tell you the breed. That's
And a lot of the sketches never made it into the game, again, probably because of time constraint. But there were a couple of creatures that I designed that actually wound up in the final game, like the I think it was called the fire crab, which was a turtle that shoots fire out of its backside.
yeah.
And I think a snail that left trails of fire or something like that. So yeah, I guess that's my claim to fame for those games was I actually got a couple of creatures into the game.
Wow, that's amazing. I find it interesting how they didn't tell you or anyone really, I suppose, certain things about the game, because I feel like a lot of people still like the games because they kind of have their own identity in a way, because everything is a bit different. Like the music is, while it's still obviously orchestral, it's a completely different style almost. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone involved in those games were terrific talents, and given the chance, I'd love to work with them again too. And I still keep in touch with a few of them. Oh, and getting back to the creature, the design, if I can touch on that real quick. We were given a list of creatures, again, from J.K. Rowling, and it was actually, I'm sure it must have been like an early draft of Fantastic Creatures, because when the book of Fantastic Creatures came out, it was virtually verbatim from that list that we got. So it was nice to get that kind of little preview of her work.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess she must have had a whole list or book or whatever, like really ready for the rest of the series. I saw that some of the characters, or some of the cards or the characters on the cards that you did are based off people that you know. So, for example, there was I saw that you said that there's one that was influenced by your wife or your dad, and there's an idealized version of yourself.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you got any more examples of this, or like how many would you say you based off real people or just imagined people?
Well, there were just the three that were based on real people.
Okay.
But the others, a lot of them were influenced by photos with my overindulgent researching. I would find some characters that just had a lot of lines and character in their face, and I would kind of use them. I wouldn't extract their actual face, but I would use certain features, a nose here, some creases in the eye there. There were a few that were just kind of influenced for other people I've seen on screen. I think there's one character, I've forgotten the name. He invented the self-stirring cauldron, and he has white hair, and he's somehow loosely based on Steve Martin. I had him in mind for some reason when I put him in there. There's another character, I think it was Fulbert the Fearful. He's just kind of cowering in the corner of the card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I designed him loosely after Don Knotts. Must have been watching some old movies or something when I was designing those.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that.
Yeah, I was looking for more of an attitude and a feel of a character than like just an actual person.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you've also worked for Big Fish Games, is that right?
Yeah, I was there for quite a long time.
How was working for them?
That was probably the ultimate. I loved working for Big Fish, and I became, they were like family, of course. The people that I work with, and I still keep in touch with them quite a bit, as much as I can. Yeah, I loved working for Big Fish, and I think that really kind of also fleshed out some of the wide range of things I've done. I My website, I've had some people say that it's kind of all over the place, and they suggest maybe you should focus on just one aspect of your art. And I have to say, I can't, because everything I asked to do is so different from the previous thing that it's all over the place. I've done some cute animals, I've done people, I've done backgrounds, I've done a little bit of animation, touched on that. So I actually enjoy having that in my background, as having done so many different things.
I mean, I think it's probably good, if anything, to show, versatility and everything you're interested in. Not
Well,
that I
yeah,
know how to sell someone for as an illustrator, but sounds good anyway.
yeah. Well, yeah, I've had to be a bit of a chameleon, because I don't always know what's coming. So when I was working at Big Fish, for example, they would say, okay, here's your next game. Here's the style, or you come up with the style. And so you just have to really be ready to shift gears,
Yeah.
because things will change.
I suppose technology and just the websites that we use and the apps that we use just change constantly. So it's good to be adaptable, I suppose. I was actually going to
Yes.
ask, is there any form of media that you haven't done something for, but that you would be interested in?
I really haven't done much in 3D. I've done a little bit. It's been a long time. I've modeled like some boats, an outboard motor, I think. So I've done a little bit of that, but because I hadn't been asked to do very much of it, I haven't done very much of it. So I suppose, if anything, if I could kind of go back and learn a little bit more of something, it might be some 3D, even though it's not my first love. My first love is 2D art, and I love doing uh, illustration and a lot of Photoshoppery.
Yeah. And you've also worked on tabletop games, which is really cool. Feel free to talk about that a little bit if you want.
Yeah, that's new for me. That's since I left Big Fish, I've just kind of started into that, and I don't have any final products to show, except for one. I've got one called Dinos Not Assembled. If I can give you a quick.
Yeah, sure.
Gotta pimp the game.
Ooh.
So I did the artwork, illustrations, trying to hold this still, trying to get the glare off, for Thing 12 Games. And I don't think it's available outside of the US at this time, but it's something they're working on. So I had a lot of fun with that, designing cute little dinosaurs and all the cards, the tiny little meeples that go with it. And I had so much fun with that one. And I've got some more games working with Thing 12 Games. Well, my NDA won't allow me to talk about them very much, but I've got a couple things in the pipeline. And I have also just got an email just last week from another company that wants me to do some stuff for them again. So yeah, I've got enough to keep me busy for a little while.
Nice. It must be nice also to have something physically tangible for once with your artwork on, rather than just a website or a video game.
It is. It's really satisfying to be able to pick something up and look at it and actually just sit down and play with some friends.
Yeah. I'm quite into tabletop games, and I was just wondering, do you have a favorite game, or say one that you really like the artwork from? I don't know how much you're actually into tabletop games yourself, but I thought I'd just ask anyway.
Not as much as I would like to be, because I don't have a lot of friends who actually are into that. So I don't have a lot of friends to play with. So, but but I actually, yeah, I do love tabletop games. I grew up playing, all of the old standards, all the card games and Monopoly and that sort of stuff. I really had a lot of fun playing Disney villains. That was,
yeah.
The artwork is astounding, and it's one of those games that can go on for a while. I actually kind of like that, being able to sit down and play a nice long game. So that's one I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really like Disney villains as well. I really like the artwork from Mysterium. I don't know if you've played it or heard of it.
No, I have not played that one.
It's kind of like a game where you're trying to get people to guess what card you've chosen, but also not make it too obvious. But the cards themselves, the artwork is really like abstract, so that it can be like up for interpretation. I think they're really beautiful. But yeah, I was just wondering, in your industry, how tight are deadlines, especially for video games? Because I know, especially nowadays, at least, the video game industry is pretty intense.
Yeah, they definitely have launch dates, especially if you're looking to sell something for the holidays. So everything's got to be in the can and ready to go by a certain date. In the case of casual games, there may be a little bit of lag time, or maybe they can come back and do some development on the back end. And so if there's an update, you can just kind of upload that as the players are going. For example, I was working on Fairway Solitaire, and it began as just a computer game. And as it was being launched, we were told that we needed to actually get it launched for the very first iPhones and iPads. So we then had to get it ready for that. And that took a lot more time, but it also, because of the technology, it allowed for more features, and it allowed us to do more things and give sometimes daily updates, change the backgrounds on a daily basis, reskin things for holidays. So yeah, technology changes everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, video games nowadays, it's so easy to update it if something's... Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at some questions that people have asked me to ask you. There was a lot of questions that people sent in. A lot of them are kind of like, some of them are like similar to each other. So obviously I'm not going to ask everything, but I'm trying to pick out the most interesting ones. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I've just got it like on my other screen here. Sarah M asks, you really brought these characters to life for me, which I think that's also true for me, I think. How many drafts of each card did you go through before landing on the final version? And was it a lengthy design process? I suppose you've already answered some of that, but...
Yeah, sometimes it took a little while, just because I tend to overdo the research. I mean, I'll spend like an hour just to research one character, and I might extract a hand from one, an expression from another, the clothing or an outfit from another. So I can come up with something. Sometimes I'll go through 3 different drafts of that. So just happen to remember a funny little anecdote. My creative director, Phil, if you're watching, I love you. But our creative director did some of the cards too, but sometimes he would have a little trouble, and he would ask me to draw the hands for him. So that was, I thought that was kind of fun.
There's a related question as well. Someone was interested in the inspiration for the backgrounds of the cards as well. I don't know if they mean, as you said, the outside was done by someone else, but I guess the background of the character bit as well is sometimes quite cool.
Yeah, the frames were done by an artist named Bill Sears. God love him, he's no longer with us, but he was a wonderful talent and quite a character. And he did a fabulous job with those frames. As for the backgrounds, when I would work on them, I would try to make the background evocative of the character or their characteristics in the character description. I think there was one with different phases of the moon. There was one, I think it was Bridget Wenlock was the character, which was based on my wife. She was a wizard or witch who was into numbers. And the number 7 was very magical. And so I put a bunch of different number 7s in the background. And of course, I made my wife that character because she's an accountant. So she's into numbers.
Nice. Okay. Someone, Zeki asks, are there any more cards or artwork that we didn't actually get to see in the end? Like, was there much on the cutting room floor?
Not that I recall. I think we did have a solid list of 101 characters. No, I don't believe there are. Unfortunately, the availability of seeing those cards outside of the game, either online on a list, is really hard to find because there was no archive that I knew of per se. I just happen to be kind of a file hog. So if I've done something, I'll try to save it onto my own drive. So I really would love to see some of the other artists have their work online too. But to answer the question, no, I'm pretty sure there were only 101 altogether.
Okay, a solid list. Oh yeah, there's a few people asked. I've got just a couple here. So Olga asks, were you inspired by any particular artists when you made these cards, and who is your favorite painter? And someone asks a similar question. Tara asked, did you get any inspiration from any comic artists?
That's a good question. Sometimes I would find something that a character description that would kind of evoke, in my mind, a specific artist, maybe from a pose or something. I can't even remember what the artists were. I think maybe there was one of the Dutch masters kind of influenced one image. What's the artist's name? Who did Asterisk?
Oh, I can't remember. But
well, he did inspire one of the characters who was Greek, and I loved the Asterisk art, and so I kind of wanted to mimic his style a little bit.
Yeah,
but yeah, there are. I think there is no one source, but yeah, there were a lot of inspirations from different artists.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, it's interesting that you bring up the old Dutch masters, just thinking about some of the cards or even just the rest of the artwork, in the castle in the game, is very, very much like that. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of the paintings in the actual game were not copies of real paintings, but very much inspired by. I think there's one that looks just very much like Van Gogh. I can't remember. I think there's one. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. just trying to remember back to the game. Okay, this might be dragging your memory back to the last time that you played the game. But someone asks, Psychotic Wave asks, what was your reaction to seeing, if you got this far, I don't know how much you played, but what was your reaction to seeing the wizard card room? Because there's the room where there's 10 or however many of them blown up really big in the game. I don't know if you...
I don't remember that. Oh, I'm so sorry. I wish I could. Oh, I'd like to go back and see that.
Yeah, actually, it's playing back. They're quite pixely now, because obviously I think the card size in the game is 200 pixels, wide or something. But
was that like a reward scene where you got to see them on the wall? Or?
So if you collected all the silver ones, you unlock the gold wizard card challenge, and it's basically like a big gauntlet, if you will, where you go through and collect all the gold ones, and then after you get them, they're kind of blown up more than life size in the game. and they're like animated with like special particle effects, which is really cool. Yeah.
I wish I could
think
remember that.
Bertie Bot is one of them, which I think you did. So
yes, I did
at least one of
Bertie
yours. Oh yeah, I mean, we've kind of tied into this a little bit, but P-Mate asks, how much did you see of the whole game project while you were working on your designs?
I was pretty much focused on what I was doing. Occasionally we would have a little show and tell to show the progress as a group in a meeting room. And other than that, if you wanted to see what was going on in some part of the game, you just have to walk down the hall and talk to somebody. But it was really fun to see like the 3D artists doing some modeling, some of the characters, or somebody adding a bit of particle effects. The final battle scene, like with the basilisk, it was really fun to see some of the earlier versions of that, before all of the shading and rendering, but just to see the action of the basilisk coming in to attack you in early stages was really a lot of fun.
Wow, I like that a lot, actually. Yeah. I guess this is a similar question, but maybe your answer is no. But Joker Alex asks, did you work with, so you worked for KnowWonder, so I'm assuming you only really saw the PC game stuff and not so much the other platforms?
That's correct.
Okay. That answers
Sorry.
that question. Bob Jones says, how did you make Kespastaki look so iconic? She's the one with the potion and the moon symbols. I think she's the first one in the second game. So I think she's pretty memorable, because actually that's one of the ones that I remember the best, actually. But anyway.
Yeah, I remember working on Kespastaki. I read the description and her timeline in that. And so I figured, okay, I'll do a little research, see what the clothes looked like during that time. And I saw that that was the time of the Gibson Girls. And so I had to do a little research into that just to make sure I was getting it right. And the Gibson Girls, as I recall, was a secretarial service of sorts. And they wore their hair the same. They wore very similar clothes. So I thought, boy, that is a very kind of specific style, and I'm going to do that. So I just gave her that great big old tall hair and the shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of tilted her head down to give her that kind of all-knowing look and holding that bottle. And so that's where that comes from.
Nice. Actually, how much description did you get for each character? Was it just like a sentence or two, or was it really in depth?
More often than not, it was a very brief description, sometimes with a year span, or some geography where they were from, and what their contribution to the wizarding world was.
Okay.
So, like, I think it was Kwang Po had he knew how to raise dragons or something like that. So I had him holding a dragon egg.
Okay, nice.
So the descriptions weren't really verbose, but they were very specific.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And G Reviews asked, what was the most taxing card to design and what was the least, if you remember?
The most taxing for some reason, and I think that the one I'm least satisfied with, was Beatrix Bloxham. I think it was kind of a Beatrix Potter type of character. She wrote children's stories.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why I had such a struggle with that one, but that was the hardest one. What was the other part of the question?
And which one was the easiest?
The easiest might have been, well, I had to say my wife, Marlene. Hers was easy. My dad, oh gosh, was it Flavius Belby? He looked kind of bedraggled because he'd just been attacked by a lethofold. So he's just kind of leaning on a bedpost and his face is very drawn. kind of wish I had thought of doing my dad earlier so that I could have given him a better character, but he was the very last one I did.
Oh, interesting.
So I had no choice but to give him that character.
Wow. And they also ask, what was your favorite and least favorite? But I suppose we know which one is your least favorite already.
Yes, I think my favorite was probably Birdie Bot. I just had a lot of fun, doing a very kind of jovial and jaunty character who does nothing but invent candy.
Yeah, nice. Oh yeah, are there any, sorry, Henry Park asks, are there any cards that you wished you illustrated that you didn't get to do?
There probably are, but the list was so long I can't remember all of them. I think there was one that I had designed, I don't remember which one it was, that I probably did have to design it about 3 times, and the lead artist from EA didn't like it. He didn't like the expression I was giving it, and I didn't want to do it his way because I thought we'd already done that expression with another character. So he finally got fed up and gave it to a different artist to design. So I think it was the character with the jellyfish on his head.
Oh,
so
vaguely remember
I suppose that
one,
one would have been fun to actually get in there. But Tony was the artist who did that one. He did a great job, of course.
Nice. I actually, that's interesting. How overbearing was EA, or were they quite relaxed? Because I mean, I guess the wizard cards are not the most important part of the game, right? So it's probably
right.
But how strict were they, would you say?
I can't speak to the rest of the game, only for my part. But they were actually kind of out of sight. I dealt mostly with my creative director, who is kind of the liaison between the two companies. So I worked with him most of the time with that. And he was, Phil Trumbo was fabulous to work with.
Yeah, lovely. Oh yes. Miyazumi asks, how did you get the job in the first place?
Oh, well, I was just starting out in the games industry. Before that, I was designing T-shirts for about 12 years. And it was a lot of fun for a while, but after about 1,000 Tasmanian Devil T-shirts, I figured it was time to move on. I did a lot of Garfield and a few movie promos. I think I even did a couple of Ace Ventura Pet Detective T-shirts. But it was time to move on, and I got a job with one company in Seattle that only wound up doing games while I was there for less than a year. And I was stuck there for a while doing just stock photography touch-up because they moved into that. So one day I saw an ad at KnowWonder, and I went over and I applied for the job. And they loved my work. They loved my portfolio. I brought my sketchbook. If someone is ever looking for a job in art, bring a sketchbook with you. That way you get to see how your mind works and how things develop. So anyways, it was the best interview I'd had in my life. Then a year went by, and they called me back and say, hey, can you come back in and have another interview? And I said, yeah, sure. So it took a year, but I eventually wound up getting in at KnowWonder, and my first project was Totally Angelica. Got to work with the Rugrats.
Wow.
But it was a lot better than touching up stock photography.
Yes. Actually, someone does ask, AJS Creative asks, if someone was to follow the art career pathway, what advice would you give to someone who is inspired by your work? So I suppose bring a sketchbook is a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a lot different now than when I started out. Getting into, if you're talking about games specifically, video games, the technology is driving everything. So when I started out, I was lucky enough that I got to learn a lot of things as I went along. But now they kind of want you to hit the ground running as far as technology goes. So I would just say, if you're looking to get into video games, make sure you do have a strong portfolio and it's geared towards that aspect of game that you want to work for, whether you're an animator, 3D modeler, concept artist, which is a very hard position to get into from what I understand. But just make sure that today you know the technology and you can show that you can get going right away. I feel it's unfortunate that it's more technology driven and that employers are looking more for tech skills than they are looking for creative talent. So I think it would behoove the employers who actually look deeper into the artists and their skills and their vision of things, and not just how fast they can crank out user interface or animation. So I don't know if that answers the question, and I hope I didn't put a wet blanket over everything, but the industry is also getting bigger all of the time. I mean, there are a lot of startup companies, there are a lot of bigger companies who are doing more things. Amazon's branching out more into video games. So there are just some jobs out there, and it's competitive, but just make sure you've got a strong portfolio. And if you have a portfolio online, don't be like me, don't have all sorts of stuff. A lot of companies just want to be able to see you focus on something. Job descriptions I've seen are kind of all over the place. A lot of job descriptions want you to be able to do user interface and character art and backgrounds and this and that. But at the same time, when you go in for the interview, they want to see if you can focus on something. So it's a real weird catch-22 in my opinion. But now I wish I could summarize that, but I'd say just make sure that whatever it is you want to focus on is really strong, and you can be self-assertive and prove yourself in that.
Yes, good advice. Thank you. This isn't a question someone asked. I was just thinking, are you personally, I don't know what the right word is, but I suppose afraid of, say, there's been a lot of AI sort of design that's been sort of just on the internet recently. I was just wondering if that was something you're concerned about or excited about, or something you haven't really considered.
Yeah, I think that's been a long time in coming. A certain amount of AI, if you're talking about AI creating art.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's strange. It's almost unsettling. So far, what I've seen hasn't been fully resolved. There's some interesting aspects about it, but at the same time, yeah, it's a little creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unsettling to think that there are people who want to basically do away with artists and let technology kind of create something. But really, it's the artist and the creative soul that goes into something that makes something fun. Yeah, maybe you could create a character using AI, but you can't really put the personality into it. You can't really put that kind of the finesse of the face and the expressions and all those little nuances. It might be okay for maybe getting just a rough idea. I don't know. Never really looked into it, but if you're working with for an art or visual project, you got to respect the artist. You got to respect the creativity, that heart and soul that actually gets a character to emote, evoke, show empathy. And yeah, AI is probably going to get better, but I hope and pray that it doesn't replace an actual artist.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think from what I've just read of other people's opinions and stuff, it sounds like I can't imagine it'll ever, well, hopefully get to a point where it replaces people, but maybe it's a useful tool to come up with initial ideas, or I don't know, like, yeah, things to then spring off and create other things. But anyway, I just thought I would ask, because just on the top of my head.
Yeah.
Actually, I think some games nowadays have been using it for remastering. Like I think they did a remaster of Grand Theft Auto 3 where I think they used AI to like do some of the textures. But then some of the writing on the sides of buildings was just wrong because the AI couldn't work out what it was saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it has maybe it has some merit. I personally don't know that I would want to be involved with something using AI. It's much more satisfying to be able to do something from within, an artist.
Yes. Yeah. Good. Let's have a look. There was a few more. Actually, I think that was most of the questions that people asked. Some of them are a bit we've kind of already answered. I'm just trying to think of other questions now. I mean, we don't need to keep going on and on forever, obviously. Is there?
So,
Sorry,
do you
go
prefer
for it.
video games over tabletop? Are you an avid tabletop game player? Just wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah, of course. So when I was doing my undergrad, we were very into board games. But since I moved to London, I haven't really had as much opportunity to play them because my, I guess, core board gaming group is back where I did my undergrad, which was Bristol in the southwest. I don't know. I find it interesting because I really like video games, but I tend recently to have not played many modern ones. I've played a few, like I've played the new Resident Evil games and a few indie games, but obviously because I've been spending a lot of time doing all this YouTube stuff, I've spent a lot of time playing older games. I guess I would say I prefer video games, but there's something about a novel mechanic of a board game that is just so I suppose interesting or satisfying. But then there's a problem where you can't buy every board game that looks interesting because otherwise your house would just be completely full of boxes. But
yes, I know people who actually do collect board games.
yes, yeah, that was starting to be me at some point, and then I was like, I need to stop before it gets out of hand. But yeah, I think I prefer. I mean, I think they serve a different purpose because I never play board games alone, whereas obviously a lot of the time you play video games alone. So yeah, I think it fills a different purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, I do love the social aspect of sitting down and playing a game.
Yes, yeah. Although actually over the lockdown, me and my friends that used to play board games have started playing them online instead. But we've kind of just carried on, like not every week, but probably most weeks or like every other week, which has been really good. Because we didn't do that until the lockdown that we had here. So that's been, in a way, I suppose, it's not the same, obviously, as playing it in person, but it's definitely scratched a bit of an itch. And because it's online, you don't have to worry about setting up a massive board game. And we've been able to play games that we would have never played because either they're too expensive or just, I don't know, not worth buying because they're so small or something like that. So actually, I guess in a way, the combination of video games and board games has collided at some point in my world.
Oh, that's great. I like that.
Yeah. So you're not really doing as much video game stuff at the moment, right? More tabletop games.
That's correct. Yeah.
Would you want to do more video games or?
If the right game came along, probably, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that. Yeah, I think I probably would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in that early stage when where you're brainstorming. Yeah, I love that kind of environment, and you're just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. And I think that's one of the most satisfying aspects of video games is just getting something from the ground up.
Mm. I suppose video game studios nowadays are a lot more, well, they're a lot bigger, and I think a lot more of it is, I suppose, contracted out, just because games are, especially AAA games, are just ginormous. Like the whole world, literally in like however many gigabytes. Like, but I guess you'd maybe get some of that same creative thing at the beginning in some indie games, just because of the nature of the way that they're created, I suppose.
Probably, yeah. If you're working on a small team, certainly, because uh, everything's the environment, the literal environment you're working in is much more intimate. So yeah, you get that kind of energy, kind of feeding off of each other, and just kind of just throwing stuff out there just to see what's going to stick to the wall, and that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know a huge lot about making video games personally. I just like playing them, but yeah, it's just vaguely what I've heard about the video game industry nowadays. It's just like, yeah, a big machine a lot of the time, which is a shame, but I guess that's how it is when technology improves so much.
Yeah, corporate driven is a big thing now.
Yeah. Actually, someone asked, was there ever any talk about selling the cards? I'm assuming no, but I just thought it was a fun question. And someone else asked, can you sell prints? But obviously I'm assuming it's not technically your IP, so.
Right. No, I wish there were some printed versions. They weren't really done very high resolution. Yeah. They were only done up to the resolution at that time for the final result in the game. I tended to work double size just because I like to, and I can add more detail. Adding more detail in a larger image translates better when you shrink it down.
Okay.
As opposed to the other way around, because if you're working on a smaller one, you're really just pushing pixels.
Yeah.
And no, I can't sell them.
No.
I wish I could.
Yeah. Interesting that you said you did it a double size. Do you think not everyone else did them that way then?
You know, I don't really know how big the other artists worked in. I just happen to like working extra large.
Okay.
Because as the question was asked, what happens if somebody wants to print it for some marketing material? So I like to work at least twice as big, sometimes 3 times. When I was at Big Fish Games working on some background art, I would often work 3 times the size of the actual final iPhone size, so that I could add a lot of detail if somebody needed to extract something for marketing, or if somebody wanted to print it just for fun, within the company, we could do that. There was even one design I did of an old school map with monsters and a rosewind compass, so it looked like an actual old map. And I did it very high resolution so that I could print it out and post it up on one of the walls in the company, because I had little Easter eggs of all of the names of the people who were working on the game in the map. So I like working big.
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned about Easter eggs, because not all of them, but a lot of the portraits in the Harry Potter games are just people who've worked on the game, right?
Yeah, some of them were. I'm in there somewhere.
Yes, yeah. I think I played through a bit of it the other day or week for a video, and I just saw your your portrait there. It was strange. I thought of a question. I can't remember what it is anymore. Oh, it was just, it was interesting that you said about doing it extra size in case they want to use it for marketing material, and I'm kind of surprised they don't just make you do that anyway. I suppose if it's digital art, I guess it's a little bit easier, but only if you're doing vector stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, vector's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, but Photoshop not so much actually. Yeah.
No, most everything I've done has been Photoshop.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose I was interested. Are you surprised at how Harry Potter is still such a big thing? Because it's still huge. It's kind of surprising, I think, but also it feels like it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I tell you, I had no idea it was going to be as big as it is.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised it's still a big thing, but I am surprised it's even bigger than ever. I mean,
Yeah.
the entire franchise, it's all over the place. You know, the theme parks and all of the merchandise. Yeah, it's still huge, and it's fantastic. I love it.
You have a lot of people who ask you about making the wizard cards. Is that, I assume that's something that you quite like to hear, like people emailing you or?
I do. I love hearing about it. I'm surprised I get so many emails all over the world. I've gotten emails from Europe, got one from Spain, got a couple from Russia and France. I think even one from Puerto Rico, New York. And I'm glad that they told me how much they love seeing these wizard cards on my website, because there was a period where I was thinking about just taking that part of the website down. Again, because some of my friends say that your work is all over the place,
Yeah.
but I just love getting that correspondence, and I love being able to answer questions. Yeah, it's really nice to actually get fan mail.
Yeah, nice. It's amazing how people are still so into what feels like such a tiny part of the Harry Potter world, but I think certain little things just appeal to certain people. I just find it really interesting.
Yeah, it was such a small part of my overall career. I'm not even
Yeah.
sure how long it was. I was on the project, maybe a couple of years, you know, through the entire process. I'm trying to remember back that far, but I remember it very well, and I'm just so pleased that it was such an important part of the childhood of a lot of fans out there,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
pleased to be a part of it.
yeah. Like they were a big part of my childhood, and I can't remember when the first Harry Potter book came out, but I'm pretty sure it was probably around the time that I was born. So it's kind of always been part of my life. Yeah, it's strange. But I just wonder what it is like for kids nowadays, because obviously it's not only has it obviously always been part of their life, but it's been a huge thing for, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, but they've obviously missed the actual Harry Potter bit, and now you've just got all of the extra spin-off stuff. But yeah, I don't know. And yeah, what are some of your happiest memories of working at KnowWonder?
Well, aside from the art, you know, the people. I mean, there's so many wonderful people there, and I think I tend to get overly attached to people. You know, no wonder, big fish. I just miss that kind of banter and laughter and being a part of a work family. Yeah, I think I miss that most of all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Plus, at one point, I had my own office, which was really cool.
Wow. um, how has working from home or just lockdown or the pandemic, I suppose, affected your career? Because I assume as an artist, it's in a way it's not too difficult to adjust.
As far as getting work done, it's not a whole lot different, although because you don't have team members working beside you, communication will inevitably break down. You can't just walk down the hall and ask a question. You have to send an email or make a phone call and then wait for a reply. And that's the one thing is communication. Plus, you know, as I mentioned, the social aspect. When I was, you know, throughout my career, I've known all sorts of people say, I would just love to work from home. I would love to work from home. Then the pandemic hit, and they just get so isolated and lonely. And yeah, I guess be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
There's a big adjustment period if you haven't already started working, from home. Then there's going to be a big adjustment, and it's got its pluses and its minuses.
Yeah.
The pluses are that no one's going to bug me. I can just sit down and plow through my work. But I do miss the social interaction, and I miss being able to get an answer to a question right away.
Yeah. Especially if what you're doing needs to be approved.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't proceed until I get this question answered.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. I'm happy to wrap up soon if you want to. I have like a couple of more questions we can ask at the end, but
okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any other comments or memories, or I suppose questions as well.
You
don't have to, it's all right.
I'll probably think of something afterwards.
Yeah.
But no, I can't think of anything else.
Okay.
But when did you first discover the Harry Potter games?
Well, again,
you said you were it was before you were born, right?
Yeah. So I can't remember when the first game came out. It was either 2000 or 2001 or 90 something. But the second one I think came out in 2002, and that one, I can remember us having the second game from like before I could remember, because I would have been like 7-ish, so that was very early. But I remember we had I think it was a demo for the first one, but for some reason it was only in Spanish. So we didn't get very far. But eventually we got a couple of the other ones as well. But yeah, so really they've been a big part of my life since I can remember. Yeah. And now, yeah, here we are, however many years later, still, I think about 20 years, yeah. Since
Can you even play can you still play the game on the newer systems?
So the PC ones, because they're the ones that I think people, I guess, remember, I think anyway, most fondly. So they kind of work, but it's a bit of a hassle to get it working on modern computers, because it's just really clunky. But once you get the game working, it runs flawlessly, and they still look really good. It's kind of strange, I think, because they feel quite stylized in a way, just the lighting and the colors and all of that. It still feels very magical, which is great. Yeah, so people are still playing them, people constantly asking me, how do I get it to work?
That's great. Yeah, it's fabulous that people are still remember it and can still play it.
Yes, yeah. You can't buy it anymore, which is the annoying thing. It's not on any like stores to buy, which is a bit annoying, because people are again always asking, how do I get it? And you can't pay for it anymore, I'm assuming, because it would cost far too much to sort out all of the IP and copyright and who gets what money, so they probably just don't bother. But yeah, still
that's probably true.
Yeah, still technically playable, and plenty of people still do enjoy playing them. Yeah, and a lot of people are looking forward to Hogwarts Legacy, which is sort of a big open world Harry Potter game. Not Harry Potter, but I suppose, Harry Potter universe.
Yeah, that game. Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard much about it, or.
No, I haven't. I mean, I've heard of it, and
yeah. I just wonder if it will end up capturing some of the same magic that a lot of people felt the early Harry Potter games had. I hope so. But yeah.
It's so nice to hear that that you and others, actually remember it that way with, the lighting and the experience,
Yeah.
the overall kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really says a lot about the team and the people involved who actually put that together. And on their behalf, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I wonder how long people will still be playing it for and remembering it. Yeah. I suppose the final thing I just wanted to ask was, what are you, so you've got some board game stuff. What are you looking forward to doing in the future with your creative work?
Well, in a perfect world, if I could do whatever I want, I've got some ideas I'm playing with for children's stories. I love children's books. I'd love to be able to illustrate one someday. I'm making a feeble attempt at writing one that's probably way too creepy and scary for adults to buy for their kids. But I'm trying to do it as a humorous story. It's about a bear. I also have comic strips that I love to work on. That's always been my first love. I wanted to be a comic strip artist, but of course, there's no such thing as a newspaper anymore.
Yeah.
So that world is different. Comic strips are still around. You just really have to dig to find them. So, but anything involving that kind of a sequential visual art, whether it's a picture book or comic strip, I love kind of telling a story in that way. So I'm still playing around with that, and hopefully I can find a venue.
Yeah. Nice. I look forward to what you'll do in the future. Yeah, thank you very much for talking. It's been great hearing more about the history and the background of the Harry Potter games.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time, and I'm honored to be here. And yeah, thank you very much.